Former President Donald Trump is holding a rally in South Carolina ahead of tomorrow's primary, and he's going after Joe Biden.
Tomorrow we're going to win this state, and then we're going to tell crooked Joe Biden, you're fired. Get out of here. You're fired. We have to take over. They're going to destroy this country. We're going to end up in a world war. We'll end up in World War III. Under my leadership, you had virtually no inflation. Under Crooked Joe, you had energy prices reach the highest level in history.
And speaking of Crooked Joe, he might want to hold tight to his short stairs and lace up his sturdy sneakers. His potential 2024 replacements are in town. Younger and more appealing blue state governors showing up at the White House today, forcing the president to come face to face with the very people who would love to take his job this very year. Gavin Newsom making himself at home earlier. The California governor chatting up with recently impeached DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. President Biden apparently too oblivious to realize what is going on and praised one of his possible replacements.
Thank you. If I were smart, I'd leave right now. I want to thank Governor Newsom for his leadership in that. And by the way, I'm not sure how many people leave L.A. can do it in 2 hours to get there, or whether they're going to come back or not to Las Vegas. But all kidding aside.
Okay, but Gavin Newsom couldn't blow his cover yet. The slick-back suck-up went on CNN to praise the president.
We got to mind the gap between performance and perception, no doubt about it.
Is he able to make the case the way that you are?
We all are making the case.
But is he able to do it the way you do, with the alacrity, the speed, the command?
Well, I was just with him. He's making a case.
Meanwhile, Biden's frail age and mental decline is causing more alarm bells to ring for the Democrats and the media. A new report says Biden needs cheat sheets to answer pre-screened questions from donors during private fundraisers, and it's seriously freaking them out. Biden is also looking like a fossil in public. Video shows Joe hanging on for dear life to fellow octogenarian Nancy Pelosi while walking on the tarmac together. But don't you dare point any of this out. The media is giving a new liberal commandment to Democrats. Thou shalt not fact-check Joe Biden.
I move that every newspaper in America quits doing any fact checks on Joe Biden until they fact check Donald Trump every morning on the front page. It is ridiculous that the New York Times fact checked Joe Biden on something. I mean, he vomits lies. Trump vomits lies.
Okay. You know, the amazing part of this, Shannon, is the fact that if a Republican were to say that, you know, it's time. The New York Times has got to fact check everything that Donald Trump says. I mean, or that Joe Biden says. I mean, they would criticize us until the cows come home.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start with all of that. I will say, though, that the president should be happy that this time when Governor Newsom came to visit, the president was actually there. Remember when he went there in July of 2022 and he was like checking out the White House? President was out of the country. I mean, this time at least he can keep an eye on him while he's there. But this fact-checking thing, okay, so Washington Post, not a conservative outlet, has given bottomless Pinocchios to President Biden. They have fact-checked him on a number of things. He has said things like gas was more than $5 a gallon when he became president. It was less than half of that. He used to drive a semi-truck. Don't even get us started on corn pop. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's gone on with this president. He said you had to sign a non-compete to work at McDonald's. And so we're just supposed to let everything go? I mean, some of these are pretty unbelievable things. So double standard. I mean, let's just fact check everybody and make it clean.
Well, not to mention that he had nothing to do with Hunter's business and didn't even know anything about it. But, you know, Jesse, the whole idea of Nancy Pelosi walking hand in hand with Joe Biden on the tarmac. I mean, the two octogenarians there, and he's got his special Hoka sneakers, and they've got the shorter stairs, and they've got a Secret Service guy at the bottom. Well, 86% of Americans think that Biden is too old to serve a second term. And yet they're out there spinning and telling us we're crazy, that he is really quick and he has the alacrity and the competence to be the president.
Binder said she couldn't keep up with that. That's the slowest walk I've ever seen. And I've seen Greg drunk. They did a little write up about what his schedule is. So he wakes up every morning when his cat Willow walks across his face in the White House. First thing he does is take off his breathing machine. The president wears a breathing machine on his face. And then he does physical therapy. He doesn't exercise, Judge. He does physical therapy where he tries to remember how to walk. And then he gets into the Oval at 10 when a bunch of aides and advisors come update him on how his policies are doing, not so great. And then he eats with Kamala, that's an hour, and then he's calling a lid at 4 o'clock. Oh, and then he schedules an hour call with Hunter Biden every day. And everybody's so concerned because if you donate $1 million to this guy and he doesn't remember your name, imagine giving a guy $1 million and he calls you Jerry and your name's Gerald. And he says, hi, nice to meet you, and you've met him 6 times before. And then he needs a note card to respond to your question. That's a bad investment.
Jerry is short for Gerald. Remember
Jerry Ford? Geraldine.
Gerald Ford, Jerry Ford.
I'm cooking, Greg. Watch out. Speaking of cooking, we were in the green room, Harold and I, watching Trump live on stage.
Yeah.
He was like, I call Hillary, beautiful Hillary now. I took the crooked off and I gave it to Joe. He's crooked now because it makes more sense, although Sleepy was still good. And he's going off on the CNN ratings. They've never been lower. And then he goes, oh, look, the camera, the red light went out, and everybody cried. But, I mean, you listen to Jake Tapper. This guy is begging on his hands and knees for Gavin Newsom to get in this race. I've never seen anything. He's just flirting with him.
Yeah.
It's a big flirt.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Greg, look, the truth is that Joe Biden now has a cheat sheet. All right? He has a cheat sheet. He already knows what the questions are going to be, who the questioners are, and what the answers are. And this is for a private event. I can almost get it for a public event, but if you're raising money with donors and you've got to know who the donors are, what they look like, and what questions they're going to ask, and then what you're going to answer, you're just stupid.
I am not going to slam Joe Biden for using note cards. I even read that from my notes. So that would make me a hypocrite. But I use notes because I have so many thoughts going on in my brain.
You have to,
right, that I have to
harness them.
Yes, I have to harness them. His issue is the opposite, right?
Greg, you write your notes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Someone else writes his.
By the way, the governors at the White House, it's like the most well-dressed circle of vultures you will ever see in history. I wonder how many governors hesitated on buying a round-trip ticket, right? And meanwhile, their first ladies, they brought measuring tape and a swatch book of window treatments. You know, it won't be long before Joe is frolicking with Commander up at that glorious farm upstate. This is the strangest election in history, and it's barely started. You have one candidate who is walking toward the light and another candidate who has to keep walking into court. Meanwhile, you have all these people waiting in the wings like ingenues at a Broadway play, hoping their star gets crushed by a Klieg light. But I think that focusing on Biden's age is now just becoming a distraction from Biden's actions. Because you can always go, well, the argument is Trump isn't much younger. But to your point, the energy level is quite obviously different. But if you talk about how old Biden is, you're missing out on the state of the country. It's not Biden's condition. It's the country's condition. It's not just Joe who's on life support. It's the country. That's why they're having problems with the fact checking, because the fact checking isn't about age or cognition. It's about Biden's lies about the economy, about saying, you know, Trump caused more jobs to lose since Herbert Hoover. Well, he actually increased jobs up until COVID, and then he almost saved like half of them when COVID went away. And this woman, what was her name, Claire?
McCaskill.
Yeah, saying like, oh, you know, you should be fact-checking Trump. Where's she been since 2015? They were fact-checking every opinion, every burp, every joke. That's all they did, and then they suspended it. When Biden came in, the CNN fact checker just disappeared. He just went away. And now they're going to have to do it because I think, and kudos to the Times for fact checking him, they have to do it because they know they got to get Joe out.
You know, I've seen you writing things down furiously. Donald Trump said, you know, Bidenomics don't work in this speech. He talked about Maganomics, which worked.
Well, the Dow and the S&P closed at record highs today. We find ourselves in an economy, I think, a dual economy where you have wealthier people doing a lot better than perhaps some in the middle class or many in the middle class. There are a number of politicians.
Bidenomics, right? I just want to separate them.
No, I wouldn't call it that. I think there are a number of things, but there's no question President Biden, as the incumbent, will have to first. It's good to be back around the table with you.
Good to have
But President Biden will have to answer to this as we get closer to the election. But I got to tell you, the last two elections we've had in this country, Democrats have fared pretty well. In the midterms in 22, the Democrats fared well, and even a few months ago when Bashir was reelected, Virginia flipped to the Democrats in the state House and the state Senate. Ohio had a big referendum on abortion, on reproductive rights. I would add, as we were watching President Trump in the green room, he made it clear that he's against the decision in Alabama as it relates to IVF, and that he believes that women and families should have a plethora of options to be able to build out a healthy family, to grow their families, which I think will probably help him in the fall. He'll have to answer questions about the justices he put on the court, but I think it's a smart move on his part. I like the governors going to the White House. When I was in Congress, the governors would come, and Democrat and Republican alike, in the tribalness of politics in Washington, the balkanization of the politics in Washington, would evaporate for a little bit while they were in that room. You had 50 executives with the chief executive of the country talking about real problems, talking about how you solve problems. And whether it's the border, whether it's defense spending, whether it's social issues, I think it's a positive thing. Finally, you have to fact check everyone. And anybody, I didn't know the context that Senator McCaskill was speaking, but based on the clip that we showed there, I don't know how anyone can defend not fact-checking a public figure, certainly the leading public figure in the country.
Okay.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.